Usually when covering horror manga, I don't get too worried about censorship. There are a couple of series that I've covered in the past that I did have to blur out a certain panel or two, but with the series that I'm covering today, I might as well just censor the entire video before I get demonetized. Starving Anonymous is a dystopian horror series by Yu Kurashi, running from 2016 to 2018. It's well known for being extremely graphic, not in just gore, but also dealing with a lot of messed up and serious issues. I wish I could dive deeper into these topics, but I'm a little too small-brained for this. So, if you want a deeper dive into the series, I recommend checking out Frights Rankers' video. The link will be in the description below. But today, I want to go over the first 3 volumes of this series and see just how much I can actually show on YouTube.
But if you guys want to see more anime content like this one, then why not go down and hit that subscribe button.
Also, I have a Discord server where you guys can talk to new people and get announcements about videos, lives, and merch. But without further ado, let's get on with the video. The series begins with 2 friends enjoying lunch while the world outside grows hotter due to extreme climate change. On their bus ride home, they discuss the declining birth rates and the looming end of the world. Suddenly, everyone on the bus passes out except for our main character, IE. He starts feeling dizzy and notices that the driver is wearing a gas mask. IE then wakes up amidst a pile of unconscious bodies surrounded by rolls of frozen corpses. The driver, speaking calmly, expresses disappointment that the gas didn't affect IE and labels him a Type 2. IE is then stabbed and thrown into a room filled with grotesque large people, all drinking a thick liquid from tubes. He spots his friend Kazu, who has become noticeably fatter after consuming the liquid. Just as IE is about to drink it, a mysterious man stops him, warning that the liquid destroys the mind. Another man, apologizing for the first man's aggression, introduces himself as Yamabiki and his companion as Natsun. They explain they've been trapped in what appears to be a breeding facility for human meat for the past 3.5 days. IE, panicking, starts banging on the walls for help. Natsun punches him to keep him quiet as something begins entering the room. Natsun warns IE not to turn around and to pretend to drink from the tube. As the doors open, a giant caterpillar-like monster slithers in, killing and eating the bodies. After it leaves, 2 workers come in to clean up the mess. Natsun and Yamabiki ambush them, force the tubes into their mouth, steal their clothes, and plan their escape. Initially, they consider leaving IE behind, but his photographic memory of the facility's layout convinces them otherwise. Before they leave, IE takes Kazu with them. They encounter 2 more workers, but Yamabiki convinces them that they're just new recruits. Behind them are 3 naked and blindfolded men. The group is invited to witness something interesting. They enter a prison filled with naked women, all drugged and begging for men to breed with them. The naked men are drugged to get them horny to breed until their heart stops beating. Yamabiki ambushes the workers and throws them in a cell, drugging one of them with the stimulant. He then theorizes that a single organization could not be behind this operation alone, speculating possibly involvement from the mafia or even the government. Whatever it is though, IE just needs to leave. But Natsun reveals that he has some unfinished business in the facility, while Yamabiki finds a strange beauty in this place. Kazun screams about a cool-looking area and the group tries to silence him, but they stumble upon the room filled with floating cocoons and TVs displaying different languages. Workers enter the room as the group hides in a janitor closet. The workers are carefully cleaning the pods, but when one of them cracks open, a worker runs to trigger an alarm, abandoning his colleagues. The remaining men beg for release as a giant mantis creature emerges, mimicking one of the men and devouring the rest of the workers. That was a pretty strong introduction from this series, and already in just the first 2 to 3 chapters, we're getting some pretty crazy visuals. In the first chapter, we're already getting introduced to some real-life themes like climate change and the birth rates of Japan. While I did think it was going to lean more into that, it does seem to connect with how the facility works. When it comes to the theories of Yamabiki, I think he's right about the government being involved, and that the reason that there is such a low birth rate is due to a large number of people getting sent to this facility. It could just be a play on how the real life birth rate in Japan is really low, but this also explains why there are only human workers instead of bug people just doing the dirty work. Now that doesn't explain why the government needs massive bug monsters, but we'll probably get the answer to that in later volumes. The art is the best part of the series. There's not much gore shown, but the designs of both the humans and bug monsters are amazing. The only thing I don't like in this series is the main character, IE. He doesn't really have much going on. He's a realistic character, but just not a very interesting one. It gets even worse when you involve Natsun and Yamabiki, as both of these characters are filled with personality and mystery. Yamabiki seems to be the reasonable one, the smart one, but is also pretty energetic and kinda insane, like when he sees beauty in the facility. Natsun is the aggressive one. He always takes action, but still has a pretty kind soul. I couldn't really show much of the prison scene due to it being extremely explicit, but this is a scene where Natsun interrogates one of the workers, asking if there is a way to save the women. The worker says no, and he leaves them to die. But suddenly, a beat-up naked woman approaches him with a dead baby filled with flies. She said that he promised them to take them to an amusement park. He walks up to her, tells her that she's proud of her before killing her. He lays her body down gently and then prays for her. That scene alone made me just super interested in this character. It's such a tragic but beautiful scene in my opinion. I would love to see more personality or traits with the main character like how they do with the side characters. The story continues with the group hiding in the janitor's closet. As they try to stay quiet, Yamabiki's stomach starts growling, drawing the attention of the mantis, which rips open the door but finds nobody. IE wakes up in a dark room with Natsun and Yamabiki hanging upside down. They were saved by a deranged old man named Orgura, who opened a secret door in the closet. Orgura, a former investigative journalist, had infiltrated the facility, posing as a laborer to uncover the secrets of a mysterious nuclear waste company called the Cradle. The facility, which seems to appear overnight, had been the source of rumors about missing workers and strange creatures lurking around. Ogura recounts his experiences, from witnessing workers dismantling frozen corpses to discovering the horrific fattening facility, all managed by a strange-looking figurehead. Terrified, he escaped into the facility's labyrinth ceiling spaces. He reveals that the facility is indeed for nuclear waste but serves an unknown purpose so far. His girlfriend, Yuko-san, believes that the facility is 1,600 feet underground but doesn't really know how big the facility actually is. Natsun asks why they're raising something so dangerous down here. Ogura laughs. Raising? They have it all backwards. While he was living in the ceiling, he'd seen all the horrors that this facility had to offer. But the biggest surprise was this throne room. Before long, the massive doors opened up and none other than the Prime Minister of Japan himself walked in. Ogura thought that the Prime Minister is the one operating the whole thing, but on the contrary, those giant monsters raised them for the benefits of themselves. The Prime Minister mentions that they have given hospitality to the giant monsters for years, but he begs in return to do something about the global warming problem they have. The giant monster uses a prisoner to communicate with them, thanking them for their hospitality. However, they don't need their services any longer. A group of mantises walk into the room and begin to devour the Prime Minister and his team alive. Natsu demands to know the location of the throne room, but Ogura refuses. A struggle ensues, and Kazu accidentally crashes through the floor tiles. Natsun rescues him, but when it's his turn, a mantis walks in. Natsun stops trying to escape and tries to fight the mantis one-on-one. Despite his efforts, the mantis overpowers him, biting off his legs and swallowing him whole. In a shocking twist, Natsun tears his way out of the mantis, heavily injured but alive. We flash back to Natsu's childhood with his mother, who always cared for him with her mommy magic, and warned him about the outside world. One day, Natsun ventures out for the first time and gets bullied for claiming that he's just 2 years old. His mother drags him back home, falling ill that night and telling Natsun to stay out of her room to avoid getting sick. During a bedtime story, she becomes unhinged, recalling traumatic events. Days later, police knock on their door. They ask Natsun where his mother is, but warns them not to open her door. When they do, mosquitoes swarm out and a police officer calls Natsun a regenerator. A higher-up arrives to investigate, revealing that Natsun's mother was a test subject who escaped the facility 2 years ago while pregnant. The drugs she was given didn't work, but turned her into a melted mochi-like state. The higher-ups revealed that Natsun, despite looking older, is actually 2 years old and a regenerator, capable of healing any injury. When the higher-ups try to take Natsun to the facility, his mother attacks, telling Natsun to run. He jumps out the window, getting cut in half, but escaping by crawling into the sewers. Years later, Natsun tracks down the higher-up and tortures him for answers. He learns that he is a product of breeding experiments designed to create regenerators for the giant monsters' endless supply of meat. Vowing to avenge his mother, Natsun sets out to find and destroy the facility that ruined their lives. Back in the present, the group rescues Natsun, but Yamabiki is fascinated by the monsters' anatomy. They are interrupted by approaching footsteps and climb up to the roof. As workers call for an emergency, IE reveals his life story to Natsun and asks him to be open with him as well. Natsu then introduces himself. "My name is Natsun, and this year, I turned 6. The volume ends with a manager bowing to a group of mantises who demand 17 people as a sacrifice. Now this was a huge improvement from the first volume. Not only did we get more character development from Natsun, but we learned a whole lot about the facility and how it operates. I really thought that the government was the one running the whole thing, but to know that it's backwards is such a crazy twist. I love the entire segment. While I didn't think much of Ogura from when we first saw him, he definitely played a massive role in the world building, and it's really cool to just see how he went from a professional journalist to just an insane old man McGucket type character. The 2 flashback scenes are my 2 favorite chapters in the entire series so far. And that's not even mentioning the reveal of the throne room or Natsun's fight with the mantis. This volume was loaded and it was so much fun to read. IE is still kinda boring and uninteresting, and actually Kazu is even more boring and uninteresting. He was cool in the beginning of the first chapter, but now he's just kind of a broken mind that doesn't do much to impact the actual story. I was about to say that Natsun having the power to regenerate seems too out of nowhere and tacky, but they did save it when they managed to connect it to the overall story. Not only does it make the breeding experiment more interesting, but it also makes a lot of sense why the government would make a regenerative specimen when they have to deliver a whole lot of meat to a bunch of monsters. Starving Anonymous manages to do the same issues that Pumpkin Knight and Grimace have, but make it work. Pumpkin Knight Part 2 gave the main character a superpower for no apparent reason, and just decided to drop it after like 1 use. Grimace's big problem was the use of sexual violence for shock value instead of using it for the story. Starving Anonymous manages to give the main character a superpower and use a lot of sexual violence, but with the purpose of forwarding the narrative, making it make sense to the overall story. If you take out the sexual violence and the superpower thing, yeah, the story could keep going, but the tension and the extra layer of storytelling just wouldn't be there at all. A manager confronts the facility's chief about the master's recent demands. In response, the chief calls an emergency meeting with all of the workers, announcing that because a mantis was murdered, 17 workers must pay the price. Each worker is assigned a number, and those picked are sent to be devoured by the monsters. As numbers are called, reactions vary from cheering to tears. The chosen workers take a shot of liquor before they are devoured. Knowing the main characters are responsible, the chief hires the Halcyon group, a team of human experiments with enhanced abilities, to track them down. The manager is wary of the group due to their involvement in a purge following Natsun's mother's escape. He reminds the chief that the facility's purpose is to save humanity by feeding the monsters in hopes of preventing future sacrifices. The Halcyon group's leader, to demonstrate loyalty, orders 3 specimens to kill themselves, despite the manager's pleas to stop. Meanwhile, Natsun, Yamabiki, IE, Kazu, and Ogura plan their next move. Natsun and Yamabiki head to the throne room, while IE, Kazu, and Ogura try to escape the facility. Ogura outlines the facility's layout, and they wish each other good luck. Before parting ways, Yamabiki gives IE poison just in case they get caught. As they crawl through the vents, prisoners spot them and demand to join them, threatening to call the guards if they are ignored. They save the prisoners, who were former workers punished for some heinous acts to a woman that I can't really say on YouTube. During their escape, Kazu notices a pair of eyes following them. Initially dismissed as a rat, The tension heightens when a worker is attacked by an invisible man who bites off his face. Forced by the remaining workers, IE investigates and finds a pool of blood. When he returns with the news, the group is skeptical, until a worker is lifted up into the air and killed by a tall, lanky man. The group flees, but Agura's trap causes the lanky man to fall through the roof. The last worker is killed when the invisible man bites half of his head off. IE sets a trap, electrocuting the invisible man by lowering him into a puddle with a live wire. Agura reveals that the Halcyon group is hunting them, but suddenly, IE's arm is gone, and the lanky man captures Agura. IE wakes up under a surgical light, tied up to a dolly with Kazu and Agura beside him. Kiryu, the Halcyon group leader, interrogates them about Natsune and Yamabiki's whereabouts. Despite not knowing where they are, Kiryu declares that he won't torture them. However, there are accomplices for murder of a master, so instead, he plans to experiment on them and transforms them into group members. Now, this volume isn't as good as the first two, however, it's not that bad. The volume continues with the world building, introducing some new interesting characters and, more importantly, some more gore. The Halcyons are a great new threat for the group. Their powers are pretty cool and their designs are just absolutely amazing. My favorite has to be the lanky specimen. He reminds me a lot of like the Rake creepypasta. The other designs are more creative, but this guy is definitely the creepiest. I didn't think we needed a group of human experiments, but then they revealed that it was for security purposes, so it kind of makes sense. Apparently, the monsters don't allow workers to use guns, so to protect themselves, they created the Halcyon group. But with that, I do wonder if they do plan on maybe a coup against the monsters. Since it is their goal to protect the human race from these monsters, I feel like they're just using the excuse of security and instead are secretly building up an army. I also like the political morals they introduce here. The government doesn't believe that they're committing murder because it's for the sake of mankind, but they are kidnapping and making them into livestock. The entire story is just filled with heavily political themes, but it is just crazy to see how corrupted and scared the entire Japanese government is in this situation. It's also really crazy to imagine what would happen if the monsters went loose on the entire world. If Natsun could kill one of them with just a knife, I feel like the world has a pretty strong chance at winning. Also a little nitpick, but I just don't like it when groups just start splitting up. Especially when we gotta follow the half that we just don't like. It did get me to like IE just a little bit more, but I just didn't really like this whole arc. I did understand why they had to split them up. They need to get these characters some screen time away from the actual good characters, but they have to give these guys some personality. I mean, Agura is good, but IE just needs some work, especially if he's just gonna keep on being our main character. But overall, Starving Anonymous was way better than I expected. The series so far has kept me entertained from the first couple of chapters. It offers a harrowing yet fascinating journey into a dystopian world filled with graphic horror and profound political themes. In just 3 volumes, the series masterfully blends intense visuals with a narrative that critiques government corruption, environmental negligence, and ethical boundaries. While the main character, IE, might lack depth and personality, the side characters Natsune and Yamabiki are so captivating that they just might as well just be the main characters. The intricate world building and unexpected twists keep the story engaging, and the art designs of both the characters and the monsters make the experience a whole lot better. As the series progresses, the introduction of the Halcyon group and the deeper exploration of the facility's operations add layers of complexity to the entire plot. Even with the amount of disturbing and messed up imagery that I can barely show, it's still a really great read that manages to do what most horror series flop at. If you want me to cover the rest of the 4 volumes, all you gotta do is just go ahead and comment down below. But I definitely highly recommend people read it for themselves. Compared to most series, it's an intense and thought-provoking series with a ton of graphic content that will leave fans starving for more. But thank you guys for watching this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you want a part 2 for this video, all you gotta do is comment down below, or you could join the Discord server and recommend me some stuff. And if you'd like to see more horror, anime, and manga content, then why not hit that subscribe button? But I'll be seeing you guys in the next video.